Alaska Airlines Flight 261 is currently in a steep descent. The crew reports that they are at an altitude of 26,000 feet and are experiencing a vertical dive. Both pilots are exerting maximum effort to pull back on the control columns, struggling to stabilize the aircraft as it plummets. The cabin is filled with screams as the plane descends toward the ocean, with passengers enduring intense G-forces and loose items being propelled upward, striking the ceiling. After a rapid drop of approximately 7,000 feet in just 80 seconds, the crew successfully manages to halt the descent, leveling off at around 24,000 feet. However, the underlying issue that triggered the dive remains unresolved, and another freefall is imminent. The situation is critical, with the crew physically drained and the aircraft barely under control. The question remains, can the pilots avert another plunge into the Pacific Ocean and safely land the aircraft? This is the narrative of Alaska Airlines Flight 261. Greetings to all viewers. As highlighted in the introduction, pilots face immense stress and pressure to ensure the safety of their passengers and reach their destinations. However, the weight of responsibility is not exclusive to pilots. Many individuals encounter overwhelming stress in both their professional and personal lives. If you find yourself in a challenging situation and feeling burdened, remember that you are not alone and that support is accessible. This is where BetterHelp, the sponsor of today's video, plays a crucial role. BetterHelp is an online therapy platform designed to facilitate easy and convenient connections with licensed professionals. A therapist can be accessed from the comfort of your home, with a vast network of over 30,000 professionals available to help you find the ideal match for your specific needs and preferences. BetterHelp offers therapy sessions through phone calls, video chats, or messaging, allowing you to choose the method that suits you best. If you find that your current therapist does not meet your expectations, you can easily switch to another one at no extra cost. Prioritizing your mental health is as crucial as maintaining your physical health, and BetterHelp ensures that these services are both accessible and affordable. If you are considering starting therapy, please visit betterhelp.com/ASH-investigation or select Air Crush Investigation during sign-up to receive a special discount on your first month. Do not wait for stress and anxiety to dominate your life. Seek assistance today. On January 31, 2000, a beautiful day unfolds as Alaska Airlines Flight 261 is being prepared for its journey from Puerto Vallarta International Airport in Mexico to Seattle-Tacoma International Airport in the United States, with a scheduled stop at San Francisco International Airport. In the afternoon, 83 passengers and 5 crew members board a McDonnell Douglas MD-83, an aircraft manufactured in 1992 and delivered that same year. This model is a longer-range variant of the original MD-80, featuring higher weight allowances, increased fuel capacity, and more powerful Pratt & Whitney engines. Prior to this flight, the aircraft has accumulated nearly 27,000 flight hours and over 14,000 cycles. After departing from Puerto Vallarta International Airport, the flight heads northwest over the Pacific Ocean. As the aircraft enters U.S. airspace, it follows the California coastline before making its descent into San Francisco International Airport. The estimated flight duration to San Francisco is roughly 4 hours. Following a brief layover in San Francisco, the flight proceeds northward to its final destination, Seattle-Tacoma International Airport, with an additional flight time of approximately 2 hours. The pilots of Flight 261 are both highly qualified. Captain Ted Thompson, aged 53, has amassed nearly 18,000 flight hours, including over 4,000 hours on the MD-80. First Officer William Biltansky, 57 years old, has more than 8,000 total flight hours, primarily serving as a first officer on the MD-80. Captain Thompson has been with Alaska Airlines for 18 years, while First Officer Tansky has served for 15 years. Both pilots maintain impeccable safety records and possess prior military experience, with Thompson having served in the U.S. Air Force and Tansky in the U.S. Navy. The crew is completed by 3 flight attendants based in Seattle, making a total of 5 crew members. Despite the crew's expertise and commitment, Alaska Airlines encountered considerable operational and financial difficulties in the year 2000. To address these challenges, the airline extended the maintenance intervals for certain aircraft components to reduce costs and enhance operational efficiency. By decreasing the frequency of inspections and servicing, they aim to keep their fleet airborne longer, thereby maximizing revenue and minimizing downtime. The Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, approved these extended intervals, providing the airline with confidence in its revised maintenance schedule. However, what initially appeared to be a strategic efficiency measure would soon lead to unforeseen complications. At approximately 2:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, Alaska Airlines Flight 261 commences its journey as it is pushed back from the gate. The pilots initiate the engines and begin taxiing toward the runway. The weather is favorable, characterized by light winds and clear skies. After a brief taxi, the first officer aligns the aircraft on the runway, and moments later, the crew receives takeoff clearance. The first officer advances the thrust levers, propelling the aircraft down the runway, where it takes off shortly thereafter. While passengers relish the clear skies and breathtaking views, a significant issue is emerging with the aircraft's horizontal stabilizer, situated at the tail. The MED-83 is equipped with a trimmable horizontal stabilizer that adjusts the aircraft's pitch by tilting either upward or downward. This mechanism modifies the pitch attitude without requiring constant pilot input, thereby alleviating pilot workload and assisting in maintaining a stable flight path. The trimmable stabilizer is essential for ensuring balance and control throughout various phases of flight. The stabilizer's movement is governed by a jack screw mechanism, where the rotation of the jack screw through a fixed Acme nut results in the stabilizer tilting up or down, thereby adjusting its angle. As the aircraft ascends through 23,400 feet, the autopilot encounters difficulties in adjusting the stabilizer, triggering a warning light in the cockpit. Unbeknownst to those on board, excessive wear on the stabilizer's jack screw and Acme nut, overlooked due to prolonged maintenance intervals, has led to the stabilizer becoming jammed. The aircraft, initially on a seemingly flawless trajectory, encounters a troubling situation as it becomes slightly nose down due to heightened friction and diminished thread effectiveness. As concealed mechanical problems begin to emerge, the flight transforms from ideal to alarming. Although the aircraft continues to ascend, the rate of climb decreases. The pilots opt to take manual control, disengaging the autopilot, which necessitates exerting up to 50 pounds of force on the control columns. Despite the escalating challenges, they manage to reach their cruising altitude of 31,000 feet, at which point the force required on the control columns decreases to approximately 30 pounds. For the subsequent 2 hours, the crew struggles with an unresponsive stabilizer, employing various techniques to regain control. Their initial approach involves using the pickle switches that activate the tail's electrical motors, but these efforts prove futile. They then resort to the longitudinal trim handles, colloquially known as suitcase handles, and even attempt to operate both systems concurrently. Regrettably, these strategies do not produce the desired outcome. The crew subsequently shifts to the alternate trim system, which utilizes a different motor. However, this system also fails to adjust the stabilizer. In a bid to identify the problem, they inspect the circuit breakers, hoping to find an electrical fault, but all breakers are confirmed to be in their normal positions. Despite their relentless attempts, the stabilizer remains immobilized at 0. At 3:46 p.m., the aircraft's nose was positioned downward, compelling the pilots to apply significant manual force to maintain control. They attempted to re-engage the autopilot in hopes of alleviating the situation. However, the issue persisted. As they continued their troubleshooting efforts, the flight crew became increasingly cognizant of the gravity of the circumstances. Captain Thompson and First Officer Tansky collaborated closely, consulting their checklists. Despite their considerable experience, the unresponsiveness of the horizontal stabilizer posed a formidable challenge. The stabilizer remained slightly angled downward, necessitating substantial manual effort from the pilots to keep the aircraft level. Their attempts to utilize both the primary and alternate trim systems yielded no results, indicating a more profound mechanical problem that they had yet to fully grasp. Unbeknownst to them, their efforts to rectify the situation were inadvertently exacerbating the issue, and they would soon come to understand the full extent of this critical failure. In a further attempt to address the problem, the pilots reached out to Alaska Airlines Maintenance Control in Seattle, reporting the jammed horizontal stabilizer and deliberating the option of diverting to Los Angeles International Airport. The conversation was fraught with tension as the captain underscored the necessity for a safe landing. The maintenance team proposed several troubleshooting measures, yet none proved effective. When maintenance control inquired about the pilot's preference for Los Angeles over San Francisco, the captain clarified that Los Angeles generally provides more favorable weather conditions, which could be crucial for their situation. The captain assesses the situation and determines that a safe landing is achievable despite existing control issues. He notes that dry runways and favorable wind conditions present a safer option compared to San Francisco, where adverse weather conditions such as rain and wind could complicate the landing process. Although the captain prioritizes safety, the dispatcher brings attention to the operational flow at Los Angeles, suggesting possible delays. Frustrated by the emphasis on scheduling over safety, the captain underscores the seriousness of their predicament. Ultimately, they opt to divert to Los Angeles, placing the well-being of all passengers and crew above all else. At approximately 4:00, a mechanic from the Alaska Airlines maintenance facility at LAX joins the radio communication, inquiring whether the crew has attempted to use both the primary and alternate trim systems. The captain affirms that they have tried both without success, explaining that the primary trim motor is causing a spike in electrical load, indicating an obstruction. Meanwhile, the alternate trim motor is unresponsive, further complicating their circumstances. Following the discussion with the mechanic, the captain decides to disengage the autopilot once again, hoping to manually adjust the stabilizer. A clunk is heard as the autopilot is deactivated, followed by two faint thumps. At this critical moment, the jack screw mechanism controlling the horizontal stabilizer fails entirely. The worn threads of the Acme nut can no longer secure the jack screw, resulting in a sudden shift of the stabilizer from a slight nose-down position to a full nose-down angle. This abrupt change in the stabilizer's angle forces the aircraft into a sharp descent. The scene unfolds within the cockpit as the pilots grapple with regaining control, contending with the immense downward force that keeps the aircraft's nose aggressively pitched downward. This creates a harrowing experience for all passengers on board, who are subjected to severe G-forces as the plane descends rapidly toward the ocean. Loose items within the cabin are propelled upward, striking the ceiling. Center, Alaska, 261, we are in a dive here. 261, please repeat. Yes, we are descending from 26,000 feet in a vertical dive. We have lost vertical control of the aircraft. The atmosphere is chaotic, filled with alarm sounds as the pilots urgently strive to stabilize the plane. They must exert exceptional effort to counteract the mechanical failure and restore the aircraft to level flight. In an attempt to decelerate, they deploy the speed brakes and pull back on the control columns with a force of up to 140 pounds. 80 seconds into the dive, the pilots succeed in halting the rapid descent, leveling the aircraft at approximately 24,000 feet. However, the horizontal stabilizer remains stuck in a nose-down position, necessitating ongoing effort to prevent another dive. The situation is critical, with the crew physically drained and the aircraft barely manageable. We're at 24,000 feet, somewhat stabilized and slowing down. We will conduct some troubleshooting. Can you provide a block altitude between 20,000 and 25,000 feet? 261. Maintain block altitude by level. 235,250. Last 261. We will accept that block and will be monitoring. The pilots have requested a block altitude from air traffic control, enabling them to operate between 20,000 and 25,000 feet without concern for other aircraft. This altitude buffer provides a safety margin as they continue to troubleshoot the situation. The stress in the cockpit is palpable, with the pilots exchanging urgent, terse commands. The captain subsequently decides to reach out to maintenance control once more, reporting the aircraft's full nose-down trim position. The mechanic acknowledges the gravity of the situation but does not provide any new solutions, leaving the crew to manage the crisis independently while flying over the Pacific Ocean, grappling with a malfunction that endangers both their lives and those of their passengers. Once the aircraft stabilizes somewhat, the captain addresses the passengers, informing them of the flight control issues and the decision to divert to Los Angeles International Airport. He reassures them that every effort is being made to ensure a safe landing. Although frightened, the passengers find some solace in the captain's composed demeanor as the aircraft approaches Los Angeles. As the pilots prepare for landing, they plan to reduce the aircraft's speed and assess the control response at lower altitudes, hoping to establish a stable configuration for the final approach. Given the aircraft's compromised state, they must evaluate whether a safe landing is feasible. The captain instructs the first officer to extend the slats, and the aircraft remains stable, encouraging the pilots to continue their preparations. He then commands an 11-flap deployment, and while the aircraft continues to hold steady, the captain later directs the first officer to retract the flaps. The pilots, after deliberating on the slats and flaps, decide to make one final attempt to maneuver the stabilizer. However, after discussions with the first officer, they opt to initiate their landing approach. The situation soon escalates dramatically. Under significant aerodynamic pressure, the stabilizer ultimately fails. The jack screw, unable to engage properly due to the stripped threads of the Acme nut, permits the stabilizer to move erratically. This uncontrolled motion results in violent oscillations as the stabilizer interacts with the airflow. The forces acting upon it become overwhelming, leading to the detachment of the stabilizer tip fairing brackets and a sudden shift in the stabilizer's position. Consequently, the aircraft pitches sharply nose down, entering a steep dive. The pilots, grappling with the compromised state of the aircraft, strive to regain control. In a desperate maneuver, the captain opts to invert the aircraft, believing that flying upside down may help stabilize the pitch. This tactic proves temporarily effective, as the nose of the aircraft begins to rise. However, the structural damage and extreme forces indicate that this solution is not viable. As the aircraft hurtles toward the ocean, the pilots make one final attempt to return to an upright position. Unfortunately, the intense forces and mechanical strain exacerbate the situation. The engines, struggling to manage the extreme angles and disrupted airflow, begin to stall, resulting in a loss of power and, ultimately, any remaining control. Despite the pilots' diligent attempts to rectify the aircraft's orientation, the control surfaces remained unresponsive, leaving the aircraft in an inverted position. In a final effort to regain control, the pilots executed a series of maneuvers, pushing and rolling in an attempt to right the aircraft. However, the forces acting upon them proved insurmountable. With each passing second, the ocean drew nearer as the aircraft's speed escalated. Ultimately, the first officer initiated a Mayday call, although it was not transmitted over the radio. After exhausting all possible options, the aircraft struck the water at approximately 4:21 p.m. The impact was catastrophic, disintegrating the aircraft and resulting in no survivors among the 88 individuals on board. Debris was scattered across the ocean's surface, marking the tragic conclusion of Alaska Airlines Flight 261. Pilots from nearby flights reported witnessing the aircraft plunge into the ocean, and their radio communications swiftly alerted air traffic control to the unfolding disaster. In the aftermath of the incident, a large-scale search and recovery operation was initiated to locate the wreckage and retrieve the flight data recorder and cockpit voice recorder, with the search area covering approximately 7 miles north of Anacapa Island, California. The wreckage of Flight 261 was discovered on the ocean floor after several days of thorough searching. Search teams diligently examined the debris field, utilizing remotely operated vehicles, ultimately recovering both the flight data recorder and the cockpit voice recorder. These devices were subsequently sent to the National Transportation Safety Board for detailed analysis. The investigation determined that the primary cause of the crash was the failure of the horizontal stabilizer jack screw assembly, which had suffered excessive wear due to inadequate lubrication and prolonged maintenance intervals. This deterioration led to significant degradation of the Acme nut threads, resulting in the jack screw jamming under sustained aerodynamic forces. The stabilizer assembly ultimately failed completely, causing uncontrollable movement and leading the aircraft into a fatal dive before crashing into the Pacific Ocean. The tragic incident involving Alaska Airlines Flight 261 highlighted critical issues in maintenance practices and regulatory oversight, prompting substantial changes in aviation Safety regulations, including more stringent maintenance schedules and enhanced inspection protocols. For essential components. In recognition of their bravery, Captain Ted Thompson and First Officer William Tansky were awarded the Airline Pilots Association Gold Medal for Heroism for their attempts to regain control and mitigate the impact, demonstrating remarkable courage and professionalism that likely prevented a more catastrophic outcome on the ground. This concludes our investigation into Alaska Airlines Flight 261. To stay informed about our latest investigations, please subscribe to our channel and like this video if you found the information valuable.